I am bursting at the seams here. I can't even stand it. Today's guest is she almost needs no introduction, but to do right by the conversation, I need to give an introduction here. Today, we are putting someone in the hype seat whose name has been synonymous with luxury bridal fashion for well over a decade. Her name is Hayley Paige, and I don't say her name is Hayley Paige lightly. There is a ton of gravity and a ton of, for lack of a better word, baggage that comes around me saying her name is Hayley Paige, and I'll get to that in a second. She is an acclaimed designer. She is one of the true original social media influencers when Instagram was first emerging, and the use of social media to build your personal brand and build your business. She is one of the pioneers of that. And she built an empire in the wedding space, only to find herself embroiled in a legal battle that took away her name, her social media accounts, the rights to her own designs, her intellectual property, and so many other things. And I'm going to let her talk about that a little bit. But what I want to do, because Hayley is so humble and not a braggart, I just want to set the stage. If I could just quickly indulge, if you got married between 2010 or 2011, I think is when she started, and 2019, it is very likely that you either wore a Hayley Paige gown or you tried one on, or Hayley Paige was somehow involved in your wedding, whether it be in her design influence or in some capacity. She was on Say Yes to the Dress. She's been on Good Morning America. She's had dozens of celebrities wear her designs, and she's just absolutely incredible. She's reinvented herself. She got her Instagram account back. She was given the ability to gain her IP back, all of her designs, all of her sketches. And we're going to talk about all the lessons that she learned. And I am so excited to have her in the hype seat, because we are all about personal brand here, perseverance, and the stories behind how you built the thing that you're known for. So I'm going to ask her all the questions, putting her in the hype seat in her own terms. Hayley Paige, which is your actual name, and I'm allowed to say that because I can say that now, right?
That's right.
That is your name. So I want to give you the opportunity to just give our listeners just a snapshot on the context around it.
Sure. Yeah. So I think most people know me from the wedding dress world. And that's really how I got how my big dream came to fruition. I got started right out of college working for Priscilla of Boston, and then went into a new company where I basically had a namesake collection. And that came alongside a contract that I had to sign. And I did so without a lawyer at 25 and got right to work. And there were a ton of beautiful moments in that chapter. I was on Say Yes to the Dress, and I got to travel the world and just really live my dream, and also focus on nurturing my craft. And it was a lot of anything I could have asked for. And as my contract was coming to an end, I wanted to renegotiate, as there was a lot that came to be during my career that wasn't really reflective of my original contract, and circumstances that didn't exist at the time of signing needed to be kind of factored in properly. And I was actually met with a federal lawsuit, which came as a huge shock to me because, never being sued before, you obviously think, my gosh, I'm petrified by this, and I must have done something wrong, I
want to get in the weeds on that specifically. So our listeners they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners. How does that look? And what was your next step there?
Trying to think, going back to that time, it was during COVID, and it was a little bit dramatic in itself because so much of the world was uncertain at that point. It just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that I'm being sued.
Now, at that point in your career, did you have an attorney that represented you already? Were you already at a point in your career where you had, because I know you were so big at in all directions. I remember when you came on my radar, it was Say Yes to the Dress. And it partially because I was also getting married at the time. And I feel like anyone that was getting married in the 2010 to 2015, Hayley Paige was all the things, everything. Were you at that time, did you have an attorney that represented you, or did it just come completely out of nowhere?
Actually, my contract was coming to an end in 2019, and that's when we started negotiating. So there was a good year and a half of just proper business negotiating before I was served a lawsuit. And so, I was coming in with the mentality of, let's figure out a way to make this work kind of thing. And it really just, there was a year and a half where the delta kind of got really wide. And so when I was served the lawsuit, I was very, very blindsided by it, in that I couldn't believe that this obviously had been planned for quite some time, because you can't just sue somebody in a day, and that's how it goes. You have to build, the case and put all the evidence in and everything. So I got served the lawsuit in December of 2020, and within a matter of a few days, actually, there was an emergency hearing granted, and kind of just felt like it all hit right away, because I lost the right to use my own birth name in any business or commerce. I had to give over my personal social media accounts, including my Instagram, which was like a really big deal at the time. And then, I soon found out that I was actually under a pretty heavy non-compete, unpaid, and, just kind of unraveled from there. But I was not very familiar with how litigation works. The negotiation process was really the first time I invested in a lawyer for myself as a creator. And, you get a fast lesson in what you might have done wrong years ago.
Yeah. It's funny. I made that time period 2011 to 2015 because that's the limited scope, but like that was my wedding planning period. But
it's interesting. I always love how people interpret, career, because with my situation, it was definitely unique in that when I signed my contract, social media really wasn't a big deal yet. And, starting my account and using it as my personal account, but then also sharing, oh, look, I have these dresses and, come follow me on a trunk show. And it was just kind of very organic at that point. And I do think now with how prevalent social media is and everyone's using it and everyone's kind of doing the same thing to help their business or their personal brand as they should be, it was a much different game back then. And I was very grateful that it was something I connected to and really invested in. But as anyone knows, you have to put those hours in, you have to answer those DMs and you have to be showing up every day. And so for me, I was so personally connected to my social media. So when I had to turn that over, it was really shocking because I was like, social media is not in my contract anywhere. I essentially signed an employment agreement as a head designer, which was commensurate with a role of being a head designer, like designing dresses. And, so you just kind of get thrown into this thing and there's a lot of psychology involved, of course. But for me, as somebody who is very positive, I really wrestled with okay, how do I operate in this space? I'm very new to it. I don't want to make any more mistakes than I've already made. And I really put myself in a position of how can I learn the most possible and what do I need to do to survive this, because when you're in something and you're showing up for yourself and you're really fighting for in my opinion, I was really fighting for my life. You're in a much different mindset of how you connect to your story. In reality, what my journey and what had happened was very, very unique. It was very tailored to this contract that is unusual, but it was also being enforced in a way that I never imagined.
As a creator and as a business, it's like, how does that even happen? I don't even know that Instagram had business pages. When we're talking about you handing over your social media, what do you give someone the password to your personal Instagram? How does that even work? What are you even supposed to do there? That's insane.
That was really shocking to me because it was my password at the time was Sparkle Unicorn 3000. It was obviously such a personal.
You just email it to them. Here you go. Here's the keys to my entire kingdom.
Basically,
what?
And when you really think about it, I grew up a lot on Instagram because starting the account when I did at the beginning of kind of that career and that journey, I really developed friendships there. And I had big conversations with people over Instagram, and really personal stuff. And so that was mortifying, to be honest, because it's somebody peeking under the hood of how you operate and how you exist and what you tell people and your secrets.
All the people who have slid into my DMs over the years. And then also because there's a record also of me sliding into other people's DMs, the whole thing. I can't even imagine. But beyond that, what you created, and I think the thing that made your business and your identity so incredible was the community that you created around your designs. And I personally, and anyone listening to this, probably, if you, like I said, if you got married in that decade of time, Hayley Paige was probably part of your workflow one way or another. You basically enter into this fight for your life and you're fighting for your name and your ability to even work. Talk about how you pivoted into, I just feel like I say this all the time with my own businesses. If I had to go back and recreate, I don't know that I would recreate it if I tried or if I could, or if I would even want to, starting over. Talk about the mental journey that you went through there.
I definitely tried to simplify everything that was going on because the devil's in the details, right? And when you get really in the weeds of a lawsuit, there is so much accountability on your ability to just like put one foot in front of the other. And I was just talking to a friend of mine that is also getting involved in a lawsuit right now. And I was like, you really kind of almost have to live out two realities of your life, because on one hand, you're in this like kind of battle, like a war almost, and you're having to kind of recall and show up for that. But you don't really want to carry that into your life and into like your ability to find joy and livelihood and all this stuff. And for me, everything was so intertwined. And I was like, okay, I can't actually work right now in what I have spent my whole life on, not just my, education, but since childhood, this is what I've wanted to do. And then it was my whole industry experience. And so I definitely had this moment of, who am I? Almost like an identity crisis, because so much of my identity was in what I was doing for a living. And it's become such a blessing, because really I challenged myself to think of myself as not just a dress designer, but as an artist or a creator, as somebody that likes to communicate with women specifically through products, right? And making things. And so I really shifted my mindset there and said, well, what else can I do? If I'm limited over here, let's find something else to do. And it was really as simple as that. But I think in honing into shoes, that's where it was a little more challenging, because I'd never studied shoemaking. And there was some transferable skill there in terms of like bringing an idea to fruition, but the manufacturing process is a lot different. We were running a small business, so we have overhead and inventory and size runs and, stuff that's really more on the business side. And so for me, I kind of catapulted myself into this entrepreneurial pursuit, knowing I did not really have the skill sets for that. And I think the best thing I did for myself was I didn't say, okay, well, because I've never done it before, I'm not going to be able to learn as I go. And instead I was like, no, that's the only way I'm going to be able to make it work at this point, because I can't go back to school. I can't afford it. Like I'm in a lawsuit, like all this stuff was going on. So I was like, I just need to take it one day at a time, take in the lessons, believe that you can teach an old dog new tricks, kind of thing. And, kind of gave yourself permission to know you're going to be bad at it at the beginning and that you're going to make some mistakes. And I think that's important for anybody that's going into anything new or they're pivoting. You give yourself that grace area a little. Time to learn the lessons. But shoes have been really exciting. It's just been a super challenge, because I'm not really a business-minded person. Now I am, but I feel like I was not at the time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you. Like, do you feel if you grew up in the business, from when you were 25, if your business savvy became polished through the lawsuit and through the journey there? I mean, it has to have been a benefit, like for your business savvy now. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me, right?
Absolutely. Like I think exposure is the best way to learn. And unfortunately, the exposure can be a big adversity in your life, or it can feel like a really big challenge, or as they say, it's everything worth doing is always uphill. And I'm really grateful that I was kind of forced into that journey of, okay, I'm going to learn all these aspects of the business. And then also while a lawsuit's going on, you learn so much about protecting yourself for the future. Yeah. And I think one of the other pieces of this whole puzzle is like identity is such a big thing, and like what you tie your identity to is super important, that you just don't lock into something and think that that is your only way of expressing yourself, because we are all so multi-layered and multifaceted in who we are. And it's not just your name. It's not just what you do. It's not your success. It's has so much to do with your character and your fortitude and all these things that you hear about, motivational speakers talk about, but it's a real thing. Yeah. And I really was worried that in going through what I'd gone through, that I would lose my enthusiasm and like my good-hearted nature.
Yeah, your magic, like what makes you watching you talk about what you went through, you still have that high energy, that aura about you. I mean, it is literally just insane what you went through. And it's so relatable for me. I'm in the process right now there's a lawsuit that I have right now. Hugo Boss is trying to get us to change our name at Hype Boss. And they are coming for the word boss.
Oh my gosh.
And it is a drop down, drag out bully fight right now. And it's so annoying. And if I sit and think about the amount of money that this huge company in Hugo Boss is costing my small business, it like makes me crazy. I'm not going to, bend the knee to them. But it's like I can't lose and I won't lose what has made me successful and has made me magical. And it sounds like you're going through the fight of your life and you didn't, like internally, were you feeling it internally?
Yes. It's funny when you manifest trauma or, what you're going through and how you kind of really, how do you get through it, right? Like how do you make it make sense in your brain? And then what are your actions and your behaviors of that? And how do you make sure it's not changing you, right? But it's making you better in some kind of way. And I think I just reminded myself that I didn't want to come out of this an angry, cynical person, because most of the time I find that people are very good-hearted. Most of the time you can find a really good partnership or a really good business situation. It doesn't have to all be combative and everyone's at each other's backs and stuff. I had to learn the lessons I learned because I made some mistakes, of course, but I was also very careful to say, this doesn't mean that every situation in my life is now going to have this like weight of it that like, gosh, I better watch my back because everyone's out to get me. Because if I had that mindset, I feel like I would be so disconnected from my ability to perform and do what I love,
Yeah, it's so beautifully said. It's so, so, so true. Who mentored you like through that period of time? Like, did you lean on some mentors, or who was guiding you?
I did. I have an amazing mentor. He is actually in more of the real estate world, and I met him through my fiance. And it's just been this really beautiful alchemy because he actually came into my life at the exact moment where I really needed some guidance because I'd never been in a lawsuit before. I was really terrified. I thought it was going to end me and I was going to go bankrupt and my life would be over and I'd never get to work again or use my name again. And, it was like this very dramatic thing. And when you're surrounding yourself with people who have really been through so many walks of life and have already been there and done that, they get to share their wisdom with you from the other side of trauma and from a very positive place in that, you can get through it. But they also kind of give you a little bit of a shortcut of like, this is actually what this means. And how you should look at a lawsuit is more of like a chess game. And you've got to remove the emotion from it as much as you are like feeling wronged or whatever, however you're looking at it. He said this, she said this, like whatever. You have to remove the emotion. You have to think of it as this is a business decision that is being made, and you have to look at it from a wherewithal of a business mindset. And so it just was a very interesting spin on things because I'm a very emotional person, especially in my design. I love getting emotional in that, but I couldn't really do that in a lawsuit. Like the courtroom is not going to care if you're emotionally connected to your work and that, your intentionality was never bad or that just doesn't matter. It's all going to come down to interpretations and arguments and facts and so many things you just do not have control over. And so that's why you have to be really careful with how you exercise discretion in that process.
Yeah, no doubt. I think for creators, and this is so relatable for me, that for creators, like I can finesse anything out of anything. Creating, like creatively, like I can pour my heart and soul into something creatively, like whether I'm creating like a graphic, whatever. But in the courtroom, I think that's why your case was so interesting because in the courtroom, it is black and white. Like it is the contract, it's the letter of the law. And like you caring deeply about your name is fine and great, Hayley Paige, but the law says this, this, and this, like, and I love the way that you tell your story around that you were fighting for your life because it is what you were doing, but ultimately the court sees it as your name, image, and likeness, right? Like that ultimately was the piece at stake. Like they don't care that your DMs are chock full of deeply personal relationships,
right? Right. Perfectly said. And that really makes me think about in a lawsuit, it is black and white. They really try to push you into a box of this is what it is. And like, as somebody who built a career on literally coloring outside the lines and putting sparkle on every single rim, it's just for my mind, it was very difficult to understand because it's nothing is black and white in this world, So it's good. That's a good way to think about it.
Do you so when you started Shia Cheval and when you launched that, which is the whole launch around it was so beautiful. What things did you learn? What protections did you put in place? And for anyone listening to this who is starting a brand now, what would you recommend that they put in place? What was the first thing when you launched Cheval? What was like the first thing that you did to protect yourself?
Let me think. The setup was obviously very important in terms of just who's doing what within the business. And we were a super, super small team. So that meant a lot of us would be overlapping roles and wearing a lot of hats. And I would say it's important to really go into business with people you really respect and have a nice trust with. And so I started She is Cheval with a friend of mine from actually Hayley Paige. She was my sales director. And we had a lot of history together, which was really to our benefit because when you've known somebody for a really long time, you get to see all the sides of them, and how do they react in a fight and how do they look at the world, and like all these things that really do matter to a business partnership when you're working really closely with somebody. And while I understand some people don't care about liking somebody to do business, I don't need to like them. I just, want to do business with them. For me, I think when it's within your own company, it's your own culture, it's your own team, you have to have that synergy because there's always going to be a blurring of business roles and friendship. And if you've got a real respectful friendship at the base, that can hopefully stand the test of time. I think that's really important. So I definitely had that with my business partner, Elise. And she's actually coming with me again as we get back into the bridal space, so it's kind of been really a blessing to have a ride or die type of business person with me throughout it all. And I guess lawyers too, very important. Lawyers coming out of your ears, like in every stage of your business and whatever you're needing to protect. And when you do need to cut your losses, I've kind of learned that you have to do it quickly and unemotionally. You have to present an offer, try to settle it, try to avoid litigation, really try to look at it as no one's going to win here. Everyone's going to be unhappy, but let's do this because this is what's going to be best for both of us in the long term or both parties in the long term, because lawsuits are really scary stuff. And most of the time no one wins. The lawyers win because they get the money, but nobody really wins in a lawsuit.
It's so refreshing hearing you say that the juice is often not worth the squeeze. You hear that when people talk in terms of divorces, because ultimately the couple is splitting up, this goes to him, this goes to her. And people always say that the lawyers always win. But I think on the business side, there's a real pride that so many entrepreneurs have around discussing what they caved on, what's behind the sealed settlement, what they actually gave on. And I would argue that it's often a lot of bullshit floats around when something doesn't go actually to court. And the smartest people that I talk to, and yourself, you just said it so perfectly, cut your losses. Sometimes you just have to cut your losses. Do you think that going back, knowing what you know now, would you have changed anything as part of your process?
That's such a good question. I've actually never been asked that because really I was on the defense the majority of the time, which is never ideal. Yeah.
That's where I am right now with the Hugo Boss thing. They're coming for me and I'm
you just constantly kind of feel kicked around and in the sense of I mean that very generally as you're just I'm on the defense and I don't want to feel victimized. And, when can I get on the offense here? So it's hard because your strategy is so different when you get sued versus when you're trying to actually achieve something. And ultimately a lawsuit is something that if you decide to sue somebody, and you're on the protagonist side of things, what's the word? Plaintiff, not protagonist, plaintiff side of things.
That is the most creator thing of all time. What is the protagonist? No, the plaintiff.
Plaintiff side of things.
Tell me you're a creator without telling me you're a creator. That's so funny.
You definitely want to make sure that you have checked all boxes because I think with a lawsuit, everything comes out, everything gets exposed, so if you have any skeletons, if you have any texts or emails or whatever, it's you have to really know your own weaknesses and your own blind spots potentially, which can be a really hard thing if you feel like you've been wronged in a way or that you're in the right and that's why you're suing, and this is, again, this is actually not specific to my lawsuit. I'm just speaking in general.
Yeah.
But then once you're actually in a lawsuit, the genie is out of the bottle, it's you cannot put that genie back in. And, the best case is typically a settlement, right? It's the idea that you guys can come to an agreement outside of the court system and let this be gone. And with a divorce, perfect example, it's if in a divorce, if you can settle with your partner separately from lawyers, you get to kind of make your own rules. If you don't, then you're being subjected to whether there's a prenup or the assets and what the judge believes. And, you're really subjecting yourself to a lack of control. And I think that's a really interesting takeaway, having gone through a lawsuit now, of like where the control really is. And there's always a battle of personality and ego, even if it's big companies fighting each other. And that's kind of a piece of advice, because I get people calling me now that are getting into lawsuits and they're like, well, what was your takeaway? And I'm like, if you're in a lawsuit, like, it's all systems go, like you just have to kind of treat it like you have to fight it, right? And you have to kind of show up like, I'm going to war and I'm going to do the best job I can possibly do to represent myself. And you can't like really half-ass it, and that's the thing. And because you can't ever really bank on a settlement, even though that is really typically what happens, is that parties come together and there's a wearing down, and both parties eventually just have to kind of settle somewhere. But yeah, my case is very unique because it got pushed into a bankruptcy court, and then it really changed the dynamic of it. So that doesn't always happen. And I wouldn't, going back to your original question, I'm sorry, I went on a huge tangent there, but
no, I love it.
I don't know what I would have changed, to be honest, like, cause I learned so much. And
I think the influencer, and I say that with no air quotes around it, I say it proudly, the influencer community benefited significantly from what you went through, like unfortunately off your back, because it defined so much of what personal brand and name, image, and likeness. And I mean, everything about what you went through has it been used yet in case law? Like, have people been referencing your like, has that come around for you?
I hope so. Not specifically yet. I've had a lot of people forward me cases that are going on that they're like, oh, this reminds me of you. And I always due diligence in reaching out to them and saying, if I can be of help or if my case can be of help, let me know. I've been through the ring of it, kind of thing. And because it is a lot about rights and influencers and like Instagram accounts and TikToks. I just had a girlfriend lose her TikTok, and she had way more followers than I did. And it was like, oh my God, like, I hate that for you, and like she started a new one, and sometimes it's like, is it better to fight for it? Or like, do you really realize that the weight and the importance of attention on social media it always goes back to the creator, right? If you built it and you really did put all that effort in, it's going to be a lot easier for you to start fresh potentially than it would be to go back and try to fight for it. But at least in this case, it did make case law. The Second Circuit found that social media ownership falls under basic property law, which is a huge win for creators. And that, businesses can't come in and usurp your account just because they put money in it or because of a contract or something like that. It's like, unless you actually sign the rights away for that as property, if you open that account, you put your name, birth date, you own the IP address of that account opening, it's your account by basic property law measures.
So cool. And I appreciate so much you going down this rabbit hole, like literally, I mean, really in the weeds about all this, because I think like any business owner, entrepreneur, there are like two major things that'll happen in your journey as a business owner. And one is that you have to decide whether or not you're going to sue someone, that, going after them for you being wronged, or you're going to get served with something. And both of those things are uncharted territory, because every lawsuit is different. Everything is circumstantial, And so seeing you come out on the other side of it with your incredible disposition, like you're sitting here talking about, the fight for your life, and you're like, well, do this, like, it's amazing how you went about it. Which I feel like is probably why you've become also the face of this. I appreciate you going down the rabbit hole about the legal stuff. I think I think there are probably 4 or 5 things that you just said in the past, however long we've been talking, that is going to help someone either avoid something or give them the courage to go after something, like bar none. So thank you for that.
Yes. Hopefully help. You never know. It's very draining in that everybody's unique in their journey and their lawsuits and all.
When people like me are coming at you with my, stupid Hugo Boss situation, are you, from a personal brand perspective, because this has become part of your story and part of your brand, like that, like part of your brand is fighting for your name being Hayley Paige, like your personal brand having this be part of it. I know you're involved with some educational things, and talk a little bit about that, about how you're not leveraging this, but how it's like become part of your story.
We launched a foundation, a nonprofit that provides legal resources and templates, curriculum, access to pro bono or low bono attorneys via referral. And that really came as a byproduct of what I had gone through, because getting ahead of it is always a good idea. And while I do think you really have to have exposure to things to deeply learn and learn what not to do and all that kind of stuff, you don't always have to be faced with conflict or adversity to have personal development. And if you're open to learning from other people's mistakes, that's a really wonderful thing. And so that's kind of the premise of that is, what are some takeaways from what I went through that it could be beneficial to people? And what don't these young creators know when they're first starting out? Because there's such a desire to want to say yes to everything and want to be a team player and, kind of figure things out later. And I don't know what I would have done if I had known this years ago. Would I have been able to say, okay, I am going to listen to this advice and make sure that I've got a lawyer and that I'm going to fight for it. And the trajectory of my career would have been totally different. So it's really hard to, I guess you're playing Monday night quarterback in a way.
Yeah.
And
it's called what is it called? A Girl Without a
Name? A Girl You Might Know Foundation. And there was like a 2-year period where I was technically still under contract, even though I had resigned. And really during that 2-year period was like a huge part of the back and forth in my lawsuit. But I was so afraid to do anything in that 2-year period, any kind of working, because of how it could potentially hurt me. And so I went by A Girl You Might Know on Instagram. Like I changed, I didn't have a name, so I was like, A Girl You Might Know. This was just like bringing levity to it. And then I decided I would use that for the foundation because it could be any girl or any person you might know going through something like this.
When you got your account back, what was the first thing you did? Like, did you immediately what?
Yeah, I said peek under the hood. Like immediately I went to see like who was blocked.
Yeah.
It was just a very interesting journey that account had been on. And so of course that was the first thing I did was, just go and block my family and friends and people that had actually
you probably like did you get the password to it? And then you're sitting there like I feel this playing out in my head where you're like trying to log in, and you know how Instagram gives you the thing where it's like 2-party authentication and it's like some lawyer's like cell phone number that has to like give you access to your own account. Can you imagine?
Yes, that is exactly what happened. Very interesting arrangement of things. But I'll tell you, I did not think I was going to get my account back. I did not think I was going to get my name back. And I made resolve with that, which was really helpful in starting a new business, because I don't think you can really it's almost like when you're moving on from like a relationship, you can't be constantly thinking about what could have been, right? Yeah. The best way to move forward is to really just laser focus and move forward. And so that was really helpful for me. So when the settlement came to be, and it happened very quickly, considering the longevity of the litigation was 3.5+ years, I was like, what just happened? What just happened? Because then I got the Instagram back first, and that was through the court system. So legally, I got the account back before the settlement.
How did they give it back to you? We're not talking about a tangible thing. Did they literally give you the password?
Yeah. Is that password and a lawyer was on the phone with 2-factor authentication, the whole thing you just described.
Who was sending it to you though? Was it like a bailiff? Because when stuff is seized by the court, it's in a locker and whatever. Who sent you the password? How did that? I'm very in the weeds with this.
Lawyer teams. That's just how it happens. And it was just really wild, because I almost felt like I was dreaming. That whole week when this was all happening, I was like, is this real? How is this happening?
That's amazing.
But then in the actual settlement, when I had the opportunity to purchase the entire IP catalog, I was just so grateful that I had kind of weathered the storm a bit, but also come out the other side with a decision to make of do I want this? You know? And I was like, of course I do. Of course I want to be myself, my name again, and celebrate and get back into the industry I love so much.
You consider I'm gonna run with though? Did you wrestle with that at all? And I think this is really relatable for those that went through if you have a deep following on TikTok, very recently was potentially being sunsetted and it's changed. But I think that so many creators have had to make the decision on whether what platforms they're pivoting to and what they should do. And I think I was just talking to an influencer about this, the mourning period that they went through over this has now come to an end. It's hard to now be oh wait, just kidding, it's back. And it happened on TikTok immediately. So did you because I love that you just said that you didn't think it was going to come back. So did you consider maybe sunsetting Hayley Paige altogether and really retiring her as your and rebranding into something else? Was that a thought at all?
It would be disingenuous to say there was a part of me that didn't want it back. I think it just came as such a shock because I was like, what? Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And I didn't want to get my hopes up because of the trauma I had been through. I was like, nothing has worked out well for me here. So like there was a part of me that was just, be careful, like, don't get too excited. And I luckily felt so fulfilled with the new business and with Cheval and feeling like I have something to say in this space. And I luckily have had the most incredible community and support system of mostly women just saying like, let's see you do something else. And like, we're cheering you on. And that was so helpful for me that when the opportunity came to get Hayley Paige back, I think I just thought about wanting to honor still like what had happened and how I could most thoughtfully mold the two together. Because Cheval is me, it is a part of me and it is part of my chapters of rebranding and pivoting. And I didn't want to just be like, bye Cheval, I'm Hayley Paige again. It's like, no, like I have to figure out how these are sister brands now and getting Hayley Paige back. And then also being able to go back into the industry I loved. I was like, this is so exciting. And
you love the wedding industry still, right? Like, is that, did you consider not going back into weddings and bridal?
No, not for a hot minute. I really could not wait to get back into the industry. And even back in August of 2022, when I thought I was going to be able to go back into bridal and just not use my name, I have really just been preparing for that. And when you're a designer, when you're any kind of artist, you're always on to the next project. You're always moving on. The minute before you even finish one collection, you're already starting on another. And so it's like, it's constantly going. You have to constantly be creating, coming up with ideas. And when I was unable to do it performatively or publicly, I knew I had to keep designing behind the scenes and I had to keep running with ideas just to kind of keep that flow, like keep the pilot light on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was helpful because now I've got like 4 years of work that I can kind of revisit and which stuff is still good enough, or which stuff do I want to rework? And so I've got this great library to kind of go through and show, but it was a really weird and wild ride because it was like, okay, I'm never going to be Hayley Paige again. And then, oh my God, I'm Hayley Paige again.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. And your Cheval, the Cheval the whole launch around it was, first of all, it was brilliant. And the shoes are amazing. They're so, your shoes are so statementy, they're not just shoes. It's like a dress is not just a wedding dress. Like your shoes are like that, where it's like, I wear those sneakers with the Velcro. I have those and I have worn them like with love on the back. I forget what they're called.
Yes.
What are those called?
Oh, I love that you have those.
I wear them on stage all the time. And I'm telling you, they are one of maybe 2 or 3 pieces that I own in my entire collection of everything that I get compliments on everywhere I go, everywhere. And it's funny because every time someone asks me about it, I go, oh, they're Hayley Paige, but it's Cheval. It's Cheval.
That's wonderful to hear. I like it interchangeably. You could use Hayley Paige or Cheval, just as you say, like YSL versus Yves Saint Laurent, or there's some.
Well, I think what's cool. So Sarah Blakely just recently, her launch with Sneaks, having those two brands kind of coexist at the same time with Spanx and Sneaks. There's a piece of, and I think with how everything about your process with Cheval, Hayley Paige's fingerprints are all over, your brand previously, So are you now, talk about, and we can wrap it up here, but talk about how you're merging the two now, and talk about how you're coexisting now as yourself and as having Hayley Paige back, having Cheval, where you're going next and what you're doing next.
Yeah, so a big part of the last 6 to 8 months has really been the transition and getting the IP back and squaring away, getting my house in order, as I would say, House of Hayley Paige. Because I know I'm going, back into the wedding industry. And I also was very confident in knowing I was going to have a manufacturing partner, because learning shoemaking, but also being the manufacturer of it, I really learned the ins and outs of the economics and the business side. And I'm glad I did that, but it also made me realize that I still find myself excelling most when I'm more in a creative role than in an actual business role. So going into wedding dresses again, I really still wanted a business partner. I still wanted somebody that could handle parts of the business so that I could be hyper-focused on the things that I think we'll do a little bit better at. And I just wanted to pick the right partner. After everything I've been through, obviously you have to look at it with a skepticism and be really diligent and discerning in what you're looking for. And I was really impressed with the industry and the offers I received, and just to have that process be run so respectfully just gave me a lot of love and hope for getting back out there. Because like you just meet all these different companies and like you don't know what to expect, and like everybody I spoke to was a delight. And it's amazing that I was able to make a decision on one particular company, which actually literally just signed the contract today. So you're like,
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. Which is so exciting. And that's probably why I'm smiling so much, but it's happening. We're going to be getting back out there this year with a new collection. And then with Cheval, you know, I would love to do a bridal shoe collection that kind of joins the sisterhood in that way. But I do want to continue doing fun fashion accessories and stuff outside the bridal space, because it's just kind of a more is more approach of all these amazing women that I've gotten to be a part of their lives in a special way. But they're looking for other stuff outside of dresses now. And
yeah. And
you
you're
know,
so good at it.
Every
time you share anything of you sketching, I like cannot help but lock in on like, how is she creating? Like you'll share, what were you drawing the other day? Some shoes, like some, it was like Canvas All Stars or something, or actually they're probably your shoes. You were sketching on the top of shoes. And I was like, how is that going to turn out? Like it looked like some kind of like Lisa Frank situation. And then you like the whole, it's just, you're brilliant. Like you're just absolutely brilliant. And I think what's so interesting about your entire story is, as creators, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to define, like entrepreneurs are creators. And you can become so dubious and so like jaded when you get, like when your ideas get stolen or when someone copies you. But as a creator, like just remembering that at the end of the day, like you still can create tomorrow. So my point with that is that like no one can take away your brain. Like all of this is coming out of your brain and your creativity and your ideas. You know, like that's the remarkable thing about all of this. Try as they might to prevent you from creating and all the things that you went through. Like you still are Hayley Paige, the creator, the artist.
I appreciate that. And I definitely relate to the mindset of feeling the doubt, and just you have so many triggers throughout the day that inadvertently kind of try to stop you from expressing yourself or doing what you want to do. And we get bombarded with so much information now. And so I feel like a lot of us have to focus on eliminating things that are not going to help us progress, you know, in knowing like this isn't actually going to help me or serve me, right? And like in that case of finding something where somebody knocked you off or you thought of something, right? Like I've had these moments where I like think of something really cool and then all of a sudden a huge celebrity is doing it with a much bigger budget and they did it so much better than I probably could have ever done it. And I'm like, that was my idea. Now I can't do it. And it's like, no. Like even if you continue to do that idea and run with it, it'll still be a different expression. And so getting really good at preventing yourself from listening to those extra things that are trying to really dim your light or trying to prevent you from progressing. That's a big part of blocking certain things out so that you can just go out and be and do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's really, really, really well said. Congratulations on the contract. That's huge. That's amazing for you. I love that so much. Where can people find you? Where should they find you? What accounts should we be following? Where can we follow you and all the things?
I'm back on Instagram at Miss Hayley
She's back, baby.
Yes, I have my Miss Hayley Paige, and then I still have All the Glitters on the Gram, which is the account I was using. Really, it became my personal account. Conrad and I actually started that account together as our podcast account. So she's really been through a nice shape shift. But then I have She Is Cheval, which is more of the shoe brand, and then A Girl You Might Know Foundation, which is our nonprofit. But yeah, I'm actually kind of casting a wide net of like, how should I run these accounts now? Because maybe All the Glitters becomes like a private account or something. Because I want to keep doing it, but I don't want the same stuff on all the accounts. I don't want to overkill people, you know, with stuff. And then you've got TikTok, you've got YouTube, you've got all these channels. And so like you feel that fatigue of, am I showing up enough? Am I showing up too much? Like, all that,
That is the problem of being the face of the brand for sure. I have a Meyer Lucas companies and everything is under, and I'm nowhere near your level or your level of exposure, but I have everything under it. And it's funny because each company like weaves into, ultimately, most of it boils down to my content and me. And I hate that, like, cause it feels so self-aggrandizing. And so like, but I have to remember like why people are showing up, and it's for you. Like people that are following all the glitters on the gram is for you. The people that have bought, like I remember like when you launched Cheval, it was like add to cart immediately. Is there like a windfall of people that were like just supporting you for you?
I will be thanking my community forever, because yes, I had just so much support and people that I just felt like I grew up with on Instagram and that followed the journey and were really my like accountability buddies, and also emotional support. And these are people, some of them I've never even met in person. And it's pretty incredible that we have that connectivity to each other. And as negative as social media can be at times, to see that there is a real lifeline there and friendships, it's really, really sweet, but overwhelming at times, I think, with branding, like you said, when you feel like you have to keep showing up, like, here's my face again, and I think you're not alone in that. Like, just everybody goes through that of, how am I coming off, and
literally, yes.
Is this registering the way that I'd like it to?
God, I'm just waiting for the day where like one of my friends goes, it's just a little bit much, Holly. But
then but then some people really love it, and so that's kind of when you just have to be yourself.
Well, I think the thing that really works for creators and influencers who really are true influencers, like my following is so much smaller compared to what you have going on. But I know for sure if I share a link to something and I say, I believe in this product with all of my heart and soul, people will buy that product because I don't say that lightly. Like I really don't. Like I do not, like everything that I do is authentic. I have always felt that from you, that everything that you've put out vulnerability wise is an actual struggle that you're actually going through. Like you're not legging out this lawsuit as some kind of like, because people do that. Like there's a lot of, we're all day trading attention essentially, but I feel like what you've done in telling your story and being vulnerable has helped so many business owners. I remember when I met you, God, this was years ago. I was going through signing away essentially all of the rights to my own name, image, and likeness with a pilot that we were shooting with HGTV. It was at the time when they had just launched Magnolia, and like Discovery, HGTV had left a lot of money on the table with Chip and Joanna by not getting the rights to Magnolia how they should have. And so they were having everybody that they were shooting pilots with and anyone that they were working with basically sign away their entire name, image, and likeness, like, and their upside. And I remember after I heard your story and then I saw you in person, I remember you told me, I don't even know if you remember this. It was like in passing kind of, and you were like, push back, like just push back on them. And I did. And they agreed to my adjustment, which was striking those lines. Like, it's not that when they ask for,
that makes me so happy.
Yeah. And it was funny because I was terrified that I was going to rock the boat with the opportunity that was there. And I was going to appear to be difficult. And and I give people that advice all the time too. Don't sign anything if you don't want it in the agreement.
Yeah. The idea of scarcity too, that you're going to lose the opportunity and you're never get another opportunity like this. It's just like, it's such a hard habit to break in like, gosh, okay, I'm going to push back, but if I don't get this opportunity, I'm going to be real pissed, Like, but good for you. That really warms my heart that you had that experience and you went for what you felt was right. And
well, but I wouldn't have thought of it. It's so crazy. It's crazy because it's just, I would not have thought of it. I wouldn't have even considered it if you hadn't been sharing your story. And I think so many people have fallen into that bucket too, Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you so much. This was such a great conversation. Everyone go find and follow Hayley Paige if you're not already. How many followers are on that account?
Oh, on Miss Hayley Paige?
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't looked in quite some time, but I think over 1 million, but I don't know. It never really registers to me because now with social media, you have such a short window of visibility. So I feel like I kind of still connect and see the same people. I don't know if you get that as well, but maybe it's a good thing because as you narrow the aperture, you have a little more impact on people, and the influence does mean something a little bit more than these like massive accounts where it's like, how can you connect to people if you've got millions and millions of people following? How do you get through those DMs and stuff? And
you respond to do you have someone managing that account?
No, I do it all myself. I still to this day do it all myself. And I don't know. I've got to find a balance to it because I think I just want to control it and hold it, especially because of what I've been through. But I do need some help with it in that, like, just getting to all of them, all the DMs every day. And I do feel guilty when I don't respond. I feel guilty with somebody who's communicating with me and I'm not answering. So I think that's my own thing I have to work through. Yeah. Nowadays, you need like a social media manager. You need, like, these celebrities have like teams, capturing their every cool moment. And like, I do have that comparison sometimes where I like look at these bigger accounts that like every single carousel reel is so curated and they look so impossibly cool in every image. And it's like, they have like photography teams of people like hiding in bushes to get the perfect snap of, every little thing. And so like you have to kind of remember, give yourself the full picture before you just completely feel inadequate.
Yeah. Well, I'm like laughing and dying in my head because I feel like the thing that has made you so special is your authenticity. And you're like, it is, even when I asked that, like, do you personally respond to your DMs? I was like, there's no world that exists where she doesn't. Because it just seems like, meaning the perception of it is, it seems like you do, and it seems like you're in it, and it seems like it's all you. And you poured your heart and soul into your various brands. And I think it is very, very, very easy to lose that and then accidentally rock the boat with your audience. And I think it's hard to gain that trust back if you do hire the wrong company and the wrong people behind the scenes and they get it just slightly wrong. Like your brand is it's very curated. Like, it's very specific how you word things and how you, like, I did this whole deep dive before we jumped on. And I think it's really what makes you special.
You're so sweet. That's so nice to hear. I mean, I also, as a consumer, like when I'm just enjoying Instagram and TikTok, I hate getting automatic responses. For some reason, like when I get that in a DM, like if I message somebody and it's like this, or if it, like, even when they do the bot thing where it's like comment, super stellar below and I'll give you the link or whatever. And it's an automated system that's doing it. Like, to this day, when I do that, I still personally respond to the
Really? That's so validating. I do too.
I don't use anything to do it.
That's incredible.
I think when you get on like a big scale, you're somebody like Tony Robbins who's got millions and millions of people, like, it's just impossible. And at least they can still reach their customer through automation. So I understand when you need to kick it into gear, but I'm going to try to hold on to it as long as I can.
I love it. Well, you're a masterclass in personal branding, in branding, all the things. Like, I feel like we could have talked for an hour just about brand in general and how, like, you have maintained your voice. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you so much. It was so great chatting with you.
Too.
And best of luck with your upcoming contract launch, the whole thing. We will be watching.
Thank you, Holly. And you let me know if you need new stage sneakers.
I'm wearing them out, and I hate saying that because it doesn't speak to the quality of them, but they are on their last little glitter leg.
They need to be worn out. They need to be left.
They do.
We'll place them for you whenever you're ready.
All right. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Good to see you too.